This happened to my father back in 1982 while he was stationed at a military base in New Brunswick. One night, one of my father's best friends and his girlfriend went to see a movie off base. When they came back, my father noticed that the paint on his friend's car was really messed up. The car looked like it had actually been damaged. He asked his friend what had happened, but his friend just shrugged it off and said they were going to bed. A few days later, my father got his friend to finally tell him what happened on that night. His friend was very hesitant, but eventually opened up. He said they were driving along a stretch of highway and noticed lights coming over a hill up ahead. This was strange because there was nothing for miles in that area. It was really remote. At the base of the hill, there was a parking lot on the side of the road where some cars were pulling in to check out the lights. So he pulled in too. They started to hike up the hill when suddenly a large flying disc with flashing lights rose above the hill's peak and emitted a loud, strange sound. It freaked everyone out so much that they panicked and scrambled to get back to their cars, banging into them as they tried to leave the parking lot. The cars got pretty banged up in all the chaos, and that's how his friend's car ended up looking so damaged. He drove back to base as fast as he could. A few days later, some men in black suits showed up at the base looking for people who had encountered the incident. They interviewed his friend and then let him go. When my father asked what they wanted to know, his friend said the men in black told him that he had better keep his mouth shut if he wanted to keep his military career. Truly a strange event. My family and I live in Ukraine, and this incident happened in the 90s while we were on vacation in Turkey. I'm really hesitant to even tell this story, but it's been so long, and there are so many other people seeing strange things in the night sky. It gave me confidence to tell my story. We rented a little cottage deep in the countryside, pretty far away from any major towns or villages. One night, we noticed that the dogs in the area were going absolutely insane, barking and acting very strangely. One of my uncles went outside to see what was going on and described what could only be a UFO slowly approaching the cottage. It was high in the sky, but slowly lowering a bit as it came closer. He yelled for the rest of our family to come out, and that's when I saw it. It was a triangle-shaped craft with 3 lights, one on each corner, making no noise. We began to panic when we saw this and ran back inside. That's when the walls actually started shaking. Dishes were falling and breaking. It was very terrifying, and the dogs outside were going even more nuts. I gained enough courage to peek back outside and saw that the craft was hovering over the cottage for several minutes before ascending back up and then disappearing. All I can say is that it was terrifying and exciting at the same time, something I'll never forget. I was living in Los Angeles in 2010 when I had my experience. It was just a normal day, and I was cleaning my apartment up when I noticed my kitchen lamp swinging. Then the building started rocking. I thought to myself, oh crap, it's an earthquake. And it was. It lasted for a few minutes, and then I immediately called my friend to find out if she was okay. She was uninjured, just shaken. As I was talking to her, I walked out onto my balcony, which overlooks Runyon Canyon, a very popular hiking trail. All of a sudden, I noticed this object hovering high between the mountains. It was way too high to be a helicopter and too small and low to be an airplane. What made it really strange was the shape and the lack of movement. It was like a large orb and stood still for about 3 minutes before moving again. It moved at a really slow rate to the west, way slower than any craft I've ever seen. At times, it also seemed to reflect the sunlight when it was at the right angles. It kept moving west, starting and stopping, staying completely still, and then all of a sudden, it would make a fast dart at an extremely sharp angle. Nothing like any aircraft I've ever seen could do that. Then it made another sharp turn at a very high speed and just disappeared. It left me with my mouth wide open. In the summer of 1982, my friends and I were camping in the woods behind one of my friend's houses in Ohio. It was about 11 p.m., and we had to walk back to the house for something we forgot. It was a full moon that night, so there was plenty of light, and we didn't need our flashlights. We headed out of the woods and down a long trail that ran through an open pasture between the woods and the house. We grabbed what we needed from the house and started making our way back to our campsite. The moon was behind us, over our right shoulders, and we could see our shadows on the ground ahead of us from the moonlight. While we were walking back, we noticed a big black circle in the sky. There were no lights on it at all. It was just a black spot like a black hole, and it was really low above the trees, moving towards us slowly. We didn't panic. We just stood there, watching it get closer. Maybe we were too scared to run. We observed as it moved over the trees and across the pasture. All of a sudden, we could see a shadow moving on the ground, blocking out the moonlight, which was really eerie. It moved from the northwest to the southwest, passing right over us and continuing on until we couldn't see it anymore. The whole thing lasted only about 2 minutes, and it made absolutely no noise. It didn't look like anything except a big black hole, and the moonlight didn't reflect off of it at all. I'd say it was about the size of a house, but we couldn't tell how high it was because it was so low, maybe a couple 100 feet above the ground. The next day, we told our parents about what we saw, but of course they didn't believe us. It's something I'll never forget.